The voice of Husker Nation is on the air. This is Hail Varsity Radio. Insight, opinion, expertise, along with the biggest names talking Nebraska sports. Join in with the show at 402-489-1240 or 1-800-825-5865. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbel.
Thanks for spending time back with you on a Monday. It's Hail Varsity Radio. We're presented by Currency. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. Hope you had a good weekend with family and friends. We'll dive in. Plenty of thoughts as Nebraska back at it for spring football. Good weekend for baseball, and dare I say, a good weekend for Nebraska basketball. We'll get there. How are things on the Big Red recruiting front when it comes to football? Tough weekend that way with some commitments. We'll have some comments there, and ready to get after it this week. Numbers to get in, 489-1240, 489-1240, and can dial us up wherever you hear us, 1-800-825-5865. Can always email the show, chris@hailvarsity.com, and you're welcome to tune in and check the stream out, the Hail Varsity YouTube channel and the Hail Varsity Radio Twitter feed at HVarsity Radio is where you can follow there. KFOR, Facebook, and Sports also allows you to watch the show in all forms. You can comment in part of the stream section. You can find Elijah on Twitter at Herbal Essence for Elijah Herbel, and at Schmidt_radio for me, Chris Schmidt. How was the weekend? Did you crush ham, or did you guys go alternative barbecue route?
Well, it was just me and my dad, so that made things a little bit boring. My sister
ribs or no?
No, we just went for some nice ribeyes, so I'll always take that. My brother was off with his wife's family. My sister was off with her boyfriend's family, so that left me and my dad, and we plan on doing some more family stuff next weekend. We got a couple different families coming to town to visit with us next weekend, so I think we're kind of pushing off our Easter celebrations for next weekend, but yesterday was fine. Started my day with a nice long hike around Lake Pawnee.
Good for you, and you're hiking.
Yeah.
Did you get the vest on? Did you walk for me?
Yes, I did. So the Apple Watch told me I burnt 950 calories before noon, and that was tiring. So I came home, took a little nap for the first few holes of the Masters, then watched the rest of the day. Sunday was a little bit boring with the Masters, unfortunately. It wasn't too much drama, and then spent the evening with my dad, and then did my taxes today. So all in all,
wow.
a very productive and happy weekend for one Elijah Herbel.
I think I did. I had 900 calories before breakfast, the way my Sunday went.
The opposite, though.
I just absolutely gored on ham. It was incredible. And then it was just me and the pups that passed out on the couch for multiple hours of in and out naps. I had an idea to go get some exercise, but I was like, no. I just stayed on the couch, man. But it was a good Sunday. So let's spend a little bit of time here with what's on the horizon here for Nebraska football. And listen, you had some intensity, you had some urgency. All of those things very real last week because you had a shorter week. And you had a shorter week where the team still had meetings. They had their team activity Thursday night, but they had Saturday, Sunday off, and back at it bright and early this morning at 6. We'll hear from Rule tomorrow, and you got to figure another scrimmage is going to be in order on Saturday, that second to last mile marker before you get to the final week of spring football and then the spring game. But what I'm interested to see is how focused can the kids come back. It's new, so it's fresh, but there's a different level of intensity with the coaching staff and the position coaches and even Coach Rule to some of the coaches he's coaching, right? I mean, everybody's still in the process of trying to get on the same page. They're in the process of implementing a process, which is key. And the talking point about confidence and development, it doesn't stop. It doesn't sleep. It just transfers to another week. And it's a continual buildup for this football team as they've got to get better because the winning, as Coach Rule said, starts now. And I believe that. I think you believe that. It's what you get done before the season starts that you really bank, and good teams apply spring and summer to their fall. And with Nebraska, there's a long to-do list of figuring out who's playing where, who can help them where, and what do we see/project for certain position groups. They're still working on figuring out a defense. You don't know who all is going to be seen in the spring game with some of the injuries that do exist, or some of the older guys that may be nicked up. And it's a very real question a week from Saturday with what type of spring game we're going to get. At least we're going to get tackling. Now, we don't know if it's going to be a draft. We don't know if it's going to be ones versus ones, the top offense versus the top defense. I'd be all over that. I think that'd be great. I think you'll see a run game and an offensive line that feels pretty good and has an advantage on a new defense, but you still got to see it. And you want to see how the quarterbacks are going to grade out and play out with the semblance of what the offense can be. But can the offense, can the defense, can the special teams, can this group, Elijah, come back and have another good week, not as compact of a week with the Easter holiday last weekend? And then can they keep making strides? Can they stay injury-free, and then can they keep making strides?
Yeah, and I think some of those questions are going to remain to be answered is the only problem for some of us working in media. And I don't even think they're going to get answered by the spring game. The question of, well, how good was this spring practice? You're going to pretty much figure it out once you roll down to Minneapolis.
We'll know Minnesota.
Yeah.
I mean, that's when we'll know what the starting point looks like and how much do they improve. But are they going to go into Minnesota with a fighting chance? I believe they will.
Mm-hmm. And a question that is in my mind whenever you look ahead, not only at this upcoming week, but as you mentioned, up ahead to the spring game, is just what does that balance become between competition and keeping the guys protected over the next week and a half? Because obviously you want to be able to test these guys, but you don't want to have any season-ending or even career-ending injuries at the tail end of spring practice. So that's a question in my mind is are they ramping up for the spring game now? Are they ramping down for the spring game right now? Or are they going to try to keep that consistent level all through spring?
I don't see him ever, especially with what he's working with and what he's implementing, I don't think he's going to dial it back. I think he'll find that sweet spot eventually of how hard to push, how hard to go. But I also take Coach Rule at his word. We're not going to be stupid with getting guys just slaughtered. Back in the day, you were deep enough to have different units go bang heads for 2.5, 3 hours, and that's how you got better. I did not get you the guest list today. Slap me. Forgive me. Chris Elgert, longtime PGA insider and local golf aficionado. Chris Elgert with us in 10 minutes. His take on the Masters. Of course, Elgert coached Zach Johnson in college, and love hearing from him around the Masters and green jacket time. In hour two, it's our Blackshirt hour. Mr. Blackshirt, Charlie McBride, a Monday with Charlie. Jay Moore also going to weigh in on how things are progressing with spring football and that reality of the confidence build that's very real with this football team. Recruiting front, let's go there. And you had a couple of names come off the board for Nebraska. We, a week ago, spent probably about 15 minutes with Gage Ginther, super talented offensive tackle from Fort Collins, Colorado. Gage enjoyed his visit to Lincoln, very conversational with us, and good for Gage Ginther. He is going to go play college football in the SEC. Had his official visit to Tennessee this weekend and committed on the spot after his time in Tennessee. So really enjoyed that. He is playing for a really good coach and Coach Heupel. Coach Eckler's there, of course, former Nebraska assistant. And Tennessee is a program that Hooker got injured, but they were knocking on that college football playoff doorstep in short order in year 2 of Heupel, who knows a thing or two about year 2 turnarounds, won a national championship with Oklahoma in Bob Stoops' second year. So Tennessee's always kind of been bubbling, and now they've settled. They're not this revolving door of 4 years in the door for whoever they hire. They've got some stability with White as their AD. They've got some stability with Heupel as their coach. They've always had dudes, and they're a real threat for the SEC East and beyond. And the way their season ended was more so, in my opinion, about the injury to Hooker than them just kind of fading out. They beat Alabama in a shootout. That's something they hadn't done in forever. And if you're Gage Ginther, and, okay, Colorado had been after you. Oklahoma had been after you. About 19 scholarship offers. Nebraska came in last fall. I know Gage's dad is a Nebraskan. There's a lot of family and friends in the central to western part of the state that are excited for Gage. But, man, they were hoping that red and white was a reality. Still time between now and signing day. But Gage, I think, in my humble take, I think Gage really likes what's going on at Tennessee. They have won, at least it's just a year, comparatively to Colorado or Nebraska. I mean, Oklahoma's obviously going to send you to the NFL if you're an offensive tackle. They've done that with regularity. But Tennessee's also a spot where they're going after big dogs. And it wouldn't have surprised me if Tennessee's like, look, we think you're really good. We like you. And here's the time to commit is now if you want to be part of us. Otherwise, we'll move on. I think, and I don't know this, but I would think that type of timeline may have been extended for him to commit because he had other offers scheduled. I mean, he had other big-time offers scheduled.
Well, he told us on the show that his plan wasn't to commit until later this summer, that he wanted to go get his official visits and go see some schools, see what they had to offer. And
maybe Knoxville and the Tennessee Valley and the beauty and playing big-time SEC football blew him away. I mean, Gage never seemed to me the type of kid that had to stay in Colorado or stay
in the Midwest,
relatively close in the Midwest.
Yeah, it was interesting. I wasn't expecting a commitment from him this early based on what he said a couple weeks ago, but just as you said, I'll echo, very happy for Gage. Just the way that his commitment was going. Very good dude. You take it back 6 months, and he was really off the radar. And then he gets a Nebraska offer, and all the other offers start rolling in. And I'm sure he's living the dream right now. Got to go out and visit a phenomenal school in Tennessee. And I think Husker fans will be a little disappointed that Gage and his mentality won't be in Lincoln, at least as of right now. But good for him. And you look at Tennessee, what's interesting about them, at least in my eyes, is they had a potent offense last year with a great quarterback, but it really, as I went back and watched some film, because it's almost NFL draft season, I like catching up on some of the quarterbacks, especially with the Broncos maybe needing one here in a couple of years. It'd be good to draft a project to go sit behind Russell Wilson. Looking at Hendon Hooker, and I went back and watched that Tennessee offense. For how potent it was, it's very, very much a simple offense. The rushing schemes aren't that diverse. Every single one of them just
effective,
about
baby.
Every single one of them just about. What it does is it stresses the defense. You have to worry about that quarterback run element with Hendon Hooker, and it opened up a lot of rushing lanes for him. And it's the same with their passing attack. I think they probably had, and this is my untrained eyes, less than 10 true route trees that I saw with my eyes, and they kind of varied them out. You know, they split out a tight end here or there. They changed which side the alignment was on, whatever. They really didn't do all that much, but whenever you have to keep a linebacker in the box spying on Hendon Hooker, making sure he doesn't beat you with his legs, it really opens up a lot of what you can do. And I think that, as I watch that, is kind of the best example for why Nebraska needs to have that quarterback run element in their offense, because Tennessee didn't have designed runs for Hendon Hooker all that much, but the defense had to be worried about it all game long. I think that's kind of what we've heard from Nebraska about being the sweet spot with quarterback run, of got to have a quarterback who's willing to run, but it doesn't mean that's going to be the focal point of your offense like it was 2 years ago with Adrian Martinez.
No, you just illustrated perfectly the stress that is the mobile quarterback, the running quarterback. And the other name to take off the board if you're a Nebraska fan, at least right now, is Andrew Sprague, 500-mile radius guy, defensive lineman out of the Kansas City region. 3 times he visited Lincoln And he said, you know what, I'm going to Michigan. That is a great spot for him because of what Michigan is. And Michigan's put a lot of defensive linemen into the NFL. They are back-to-back college football playoff participants, back-to-back Big Ten champs. So the theme right now is start winning and we'll talk. If you're a big-time, high-profile recruit, Nebraska's done a wonderful job of getting these kids in communication, laying out Nebraska's vision, and right now it is, we'll win now. That's the plan. Well, you still have a few months till 2023 kicks off. You have recency in Tennessee, an 11-2 season. You have an extended bit of recency in elite level of participation with Michigan conference championships, college football playoffs. We had it to do over again, and Michigan's not handing out 18 points off turnovers. They're probably playing for the college football championship instead of losing in a shootout to TCU. But Nebraska's next move is to start doing it on the field. And the minute that happens, the minute Nebraska stacks some games and then some seasons, they'll be right in it. They'll identify, they'll recruit their butts off, they'll win some of these right now that, hey, they were in the fight, but as of right now, before signing day, these kids are going to places that have won more recently. Chris Elgert next. Masters Thoughts, Hail Varsity on a Monday.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back with you at Hail Varsity Radio, presented by Currency. Our PGA insider, Chris Elgert, joins us to talk the Masters. Chris, how was the weekend? Did you enjoy Sunday?
It was great. You know, the weather was good here, and the weather came through on Sunday down in Augusta as well.
It did. There's been the narrative's been a little bit of a disappointing Masters for those of us that work a whole year to maybe get a birdie. I just still smile at it. I love the ambiance of it. John Rahm did what for you? He'd already had a major in his back pocket. What does Augusta do for him as far as his stature?
Well, obviously, I think he's going to win many more. I think he's, the next one, probably other than Rory, that we're going to start talking about the Grand Slam here pretty soon, just because he's so talented, and the things that he's doing in the game are just unbelievable when it comes to top 10 percentages and things. I mean, he's really, really on a Tiger-like tear right now, and seems to finish, win about every 3 or 4 times out and finishes in the top 5 or top 10 in every event.
Chris Elgert joins us here, Hail Varsity Radio. You have dear friends that were playing at Augusta. Zach Johnson's a name that comes to mind. Any communication with him or some of the guys down there? Just how difficult were the conditions? I know the course took 2 inches of rain over the weekend, and then it looked at least a little better for the afternoon session Sunday, but just how tough was it for the guys in your mind?
Well, for Zach, I mean, it's a big golf course. As they've continued to lengthen it every year and done little things, Zach shot 73 on Sunday, and he really got about as much out of it as he could. He missed a putt from about 12 feet on 18 for birdie, and he missed kind of a shortish putt on 13 for birdie from probably about 5.5 feet that lipped out. But, overall, he made a few putts. I know he made probably a 10 or 12 footer for par on 11 or on 10. He made a relatively lengthy par putt on 11. He kind of had to just fight his way around. Unfortunately for Z, he's just not long enough to truly compete out there unless he just knocks the flag out of the hole, which is hard to do when he's playing 450-yard holes and he's got 175 yards or 180 yards into every hole when it's playing soft. For him out there to compete, it's really going to have to be kind of fast and furious, and that just wasn't the case with the rain they got. The golf course was in incredible shape, and they do a great job of getting water off the grounds. But still, it just didn't have that additional rollout either on the greens or in the fairways for them. And so that's why you see some of the guys who can really move it run up the leaderboard.
Chris Elgert's with us, few minutes recapping the Masters. Hail Varsity Radio. What do you believe about the LIV v. PGA narrative? Was it overblown, or is that tension real?
No, I think it's overblown for the most part. I mean, there's going to be some little tensions that are there, but some of that was there when they were all on the PGA Tour. Not everybody loves Mickelson, not everybody loves Garcia, not everybody gets along. And so I think those who are friends from the PGA Tour that went to LIV are, still somewhat remain friends and cordial. But, LIV, in my opinion, I think LIV has a short life. Mm-hmm. I just don't see them with their TV ratings and the money that they're spilling out. Without getting any return on that money, I just can't see that the group from Saudi Arabia is going to not get bored with it and give up on it in a couple years.
You mentioned Phil Mickelson there, and Phil really impressed me with his Sunday performance, getting up into a second-place finish tied with Brooks Koepka. And I want you to give me someone that surprised you this weekend with their performance, in a good way, and then give me another guy who disappointed you with their performance in a bad way.
Well, Mickelson was definitely a shock. Honestly, the 65 on Sunday was outstanding. It was the lowest round of the day, but he really played well Thursday and Friday, too. I mean, for a guy who's 53 years old to come out and shoot 71-69 to start the tournament is pretty incredible. He just had a kind of an off third round where he shot 75. But, it doesn't surprise me with him. He's got so much talent, and around that golf course, it kind of brings out his artistic game where you really have to see shots and play shots, and there's no real one way to just go at it. That's why, like, he and Bubba and some of those guys have had such success around there. But obviously the biggest disappointment would have had to have been Rory coming in, the way he was playing, the way he finished second in the match play, the way he, the lead-up has been. That 77 that he shot in the second round kind of threw everybody for a loop. But, overall, there's just so many good players, and if you're not right on top of your game, you're probably going to get boat raced a little bit. And, when you look up and down that leaderboard and you've got guys like Rahm and Koepka and Spieth and Reed and Cameron Young and Hovland and Thagala and Scheffler, there's just so many good players, and just go on and on. Fitzpatrick, Schauffele, Morikawa in the top 10. I mean, there's just great players in the world today, and it's sad to me that they don't get together more often with LIV and PGA and their split. But it is fun when they get together and the best players in the world are competing on the same.
Couple more minutes. Chris Elgert with us, Hail Varsity Radio, our PGA insider, recapping the Masters. Let's turn to Tiger, and his plantar fasciitis was an issue. His health, not great. The conditions made it difficult to walk the course. Saw that he also had a screw bust through. So, I mean, all sorts of hurting, and he aggravated his leg issues. Do you believe you'll see Tiger at the next major? What's the prognosis? No?
I don't. I think he'll take the PGA off. I think he's going to have to really kind of pay attention to where they're playing, and being in Upper New York or whatever in May for the PGA just doesn't make any sense to me. It's probably going to be cool there again. I don't know when we'll see him. I mean, it was pretty heartbreaking to watch that. Mm-hmm. Just because he's dragging it. There's just no way. There's just no way that he's going to be able to compete out there unless he's a little healthier than he is right now. I mean, he's got to be able to walk around and not go through that much pain. It's just too hard over 4 days to stay mentally in it as much as you need to win a major championship if you're playing on one leg.
Question posed out there by ESPN.com, setback for Tiger or reality check? I think you answered it when it comes to pay attention to where they play, where the events are going to be at for Tiger. What do you still love about his game? What can keep him in contention, despite the physical
he can
issues.
hit the golf shots. I don't think that's a problem. The problem that I see, and this is just, father time or just lack of reps, but, he can't stand there. He can't stand on that leg in practice like he needs to. So his short game, where he was the greatest clutch putter, the greatest putter for a 10 or 15-year span, he was missing a lot of those putts. And those putts that you just knew he was going to make, they were, not well struck. And, he came out of the gates right away on 12 and hit it to about 5 feet right behind the hole, and the camera angle was perfect, but he pulled that putt and missed the entire hole by a cup. And that's just not something that you would ever see from Tiger Woods. And I think that's just lack of reps. I just don't think he has he's physically in a position where he can practice and play as much as he needs to leading up to these events, and it shows. He's rusty, and he comes out, and then he's hurt, and then he can't compete with these guys, and he needs to go back to the drawing board with that leg. And I think the days of Tiger Woods competing at all are somewhat numbered, and the chance of him ever really being in the hunt is questionable at this point.
Yeah, this weekend did feel sort of, I don't want to call it the end of the road for Tiger, but it definitely looked like a different version of Tiger than I've ever remembered seeing it, and you wonder how much longer it's going to be. But on the flip side of things, we saw a career get started with Sam Bennett and his performance in the Masters this weekend. The low amateur, he was in contention all weekend long, and I want to get your reaction to the performance that a college kid, Sam Bennett, put on this weekend.
Well, I mean, obviously he's a tremendous talent. He's been at Texas A&M, so I've kind of followed his career for a long time. He's a senior down there, and so he's a heck of a player. I mean, there's a lot of kids, a lot of amateur kids. I don't think we're that far away from an amateur, really. I mean, he ended up faltering a little bit on Sunday, I guess, in the last of the third round, the whole fourth round, but still finished tied for 16th, and that's a heck of an accomplishment for an amateur golfer. But Ben Carr, the kid from Georgia Southern, who was playing and missed the cut, and Potgieter, the kid from South Africa, is a really, really good player as well. And obviously Gordon Sargent, who finished last among the amateurs, in my opinion, has probably some of the best upside with his ball speed. I mean, he's hitting it out there. I mean, his ball speed is nearing 200 miles an hour, and he's a 20-year-old sophomore at Vanderbilt. So, it won't be long, I don't think, until we see an amateur that comes through the ranks that really, really pushes these guys and get it even closer than Sam did. But that's a monumental finish, and the only guy to make the cut, so it was kind of a walk in the park for him, and he was in there. Whenever you could say he beat the number one, he beat Scheffler on Thursday and Friday, and then was paired with Rahm and Koepka for the third round. That's a pretty strong accomplishment.
Chris, before we go, you're a proud parent of two really talented golfers, so you're around youth golf. And what does this next generation, what do you think they'll bring to the game?
Oh, I mean, and Tiger's even said it, because Tiger's son and my son are the same age, and it's amazing how good these players are. You look up and down the score, they're playing 6,800-yard golf courses and shooting in the mid-60s already at 14 and 15 years old. And my son runs around with a couple of them, Miles Russell being one that won down in North Carolina this week. He shot 66.72. Davis Watnowski, who's the number one player in the country at that age at 14, is one of my son's best friends down there. And he's incredible. Played in 2 U.S. juniors, shooting rounds in the 60s. There is a lot of kids coming, and Tiger has made this game incredibly cool. And so now athletes are playing golf. With the invention of TrackMan and some of the mechanisms and devices that they have out there to make these kids better. They're just coming from everywhere, and they're the events that you can play in now as a junior so much bigger and stronger, and they're just not fazed by getting out there and playing on TV anymore. The college events are on TV. The top amateur events are on TV. They're used to it. They're used to seeing cameras in their faces. So because of that reason, when they get out on the PGA Tour, they're just not fazed by it.
Chris, best to you and your fam. Thanks for a few minutes today.
You bet. Take care.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Big thanks to Chris Elgert talking Masters Hail Varsity presented by Currency. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. 489-1240, 489-1240 to get in. Chris at HailVarsity.com. And Charlie McBride about 25 minutes away. Jay Moore follows. What a weekend for Nebraska baseball as they're able to win the series against Michigan 2-1. And a bounce back that didn't start off great, but some things to put in your back pocket if you're Nebraska. One, you get a series win. You're still 4-2 in the Big Ten. You won an extra innings game Friday. You lost a tough one Saturday, 8-6, where you were 0-10 with runners in scoring position. But you fixed it the following day with that 11 o'clock Central first pitch, where you went 7-14 with runners in scoring position. And you maybe have found your guy. We've talked a lot about Will Walsh, the sophomore lefty, but he had a tough first inning, two RBI singles when he gave up 3 runs total, but he settled in, and then the Nebraska bats got after Jacob Dwyer of Michigan. So you tacked on runs. You just didn't settle in the 5th, 6th, and 7th. And quite honestly, you keep getting great performances from Bryce Matthews and Max Anderson. The rest of the lineup got going as well. And Nebraska is a team that their reality is this. They either win the Big Ten outright in the regular season or they make a push in the postseason in Omaha. Because right now they're on that bubble as an at-large because of their midweek missteps. While you've got Vandy, you also have some pretty tough losses to UNO. No disrespect. I'm not doing that. No disrespect to Creighton either. But those are matchups you can't lose. And it is fish in a barrel time for Nebraska baseball based on what they can be and what they're facing. The series that looms, Northwestern and Minnesota, they are not good. Their record's not good. They're going to do you a disservice if you even lose a game to them, quite honestly, in this RPI discussion point to get in to the postseason. So your job right now is to get the brooms and keep them handy. 1 pitch at a time, totally get it. 1 inning at a time, 1 game at a time. But Nebraska can put a run together after the Michigan ball game or series. You get UNO tomorrow night, then you get Northwestern, you get Minnesota. You also have the opportunity still to make some hay against Maryland and Iowa. Two series that are around the corner for Nebraska baseball, that they go win those series, they're back on the right side of the RPI discussion. But there's not much help out there right now, Elijah, for Nebraska baseball other than just to keep doing what they're doing, and that's winning. Get a great Friday night start, get solid Saturday pitching. You think you found your guy Sunday. Your offense is pretty elite right now, and your bullpen is coming around when you look at Garza and Buns. In total, the last 14 2/3 innings, Nebraska's bullpen's only allowed 2 runs. So it seems to be coming together for this Nebraska baseball team, but their mission is very clear, and that's go win ball games, and they've already had too many missteps, quite frankly, in the midweek.
But it kind of does feel like that same conversation we're having 2 years ago, because it really does feel like with Nebraska baseball playing in the Big Ten, your opportunities for missteps are always going to be few and far between. That's just how it's going to be in the Big Ten. It's not like the Big 12 where if you lose a series here or there, it's okay. Where 2 years ago,
get another ranked team around the corner.
Yeah, I mean, 2 years ago, there was no Big Ten tournament even for Nebraska to fall back upon, if you remember that season following COVID. So you didn't have any room for missteps. And how Nebraska finished the year? Well, they reeled off, I believe it was 10 straight victories. And then they won that series against Michigan at home to lock up the Big Ten crown. And you're able to go play in a regional with the number 1 team in the country in Arkansas and push them to the brink. But what it took was that gritty over pretty mentality. And Nebraska baseball really embraced that to finish the year, and they were just about perfect. And now you look at this season, Nebraska doesn't need perfection moving forward, but you need something pretty close to it. I don't think you can afford to drop another series unless maybe it's Maryland or Iowa, but even then, I think you're going to need those series in order to get in.
You better win one of those two, and to be safe, you better win both.
And if you are going to lose it, you better lose it to the eventual Big Ten champion. That's the way it's got to be. That's what I'm saying with room for error. You can afford to drop a game or two here or there, but you're not going to be able to afford to drop a series, or else with just the strength of the Big Ten, you're not going to be in the postseason.
Get to your phone calls here in a minute, 489-1240, 489-1240, but Will Bolt has done a really good job this year. You have Nebraska that is feeling solid about where they're at, but they're not comfortable, and that's okay. The job right now to keep hitting the ball, and the thing that's good is if Nebraska's offense keeps being what they are, your pitching has seemed to be able to catch up to your offense, so you've got some complementary baseball. We spent too many years talking about complementary football, but you'd like to think that the pitching and bullpen now are getting to an area where they can pick up Nebraska if the offense is off. And they scored enough runs on Saturday to win, but they also didn't do enough at their own hand to win it with their runners in scoring position. Chris is on the line. Chris, thanks for calling. Go ahead.
Hey, guys. Yep, great show. I agree with Mr. Herbel. We need to win every series, especially the losses of San Diego. They're a bad team. I mean, they are awful. They just have tanked since, I think, about the second week of the season. I think they're like 6-7 games under 500 now. We've got to beat Iowa and Maryland. It'd be great to get a sweep on one of them. That'd be fantastic.
That'd be
that would help.
good.
But I think we got to win every series, and especially the big game series, the Iowa and Maryland, because we do have some really bad losses to some,
teams aren't going to help.
Below average teams.
Yeah, they're not going to help Nebraska when it comes to selection time. You're right on with that. And to be honest, the in-state losses, you cannot have any more. You've got remaining games against UNO tomorrow night. You've got another one with Creighton you got to handle. And that's a situation you put yourself in, but at least they're showing some signs of being able to handle it.
Oh, it seems like they're by far a good enough team to do it. They just got to quit screwing around in the midweek and just take care of business, because they have decent pitching. They're the best offensive team possibly in the Big Ten, and they're decent with the gloves. There's no reason why we can't play just as well in the midweek as we do on our weekends. So.
Good enough. Thanks for the phone call. Appreciate it. Nope.
And if there's any positive takeaway, it does feel like Nebraska seems to be hitting their stride and playing complementary baseball at the right time, as you were talking about earlier. Even you look at Saturday, Nebraska ends up losing the game, but you get the run support. You get 8 runs, and you try to pick up that pitching whenever they're not having a great day. And then on Friday night, you're going up against Michigan's ace, whose name escapes me right now. I apologize, but you knew you were going to need
You want a tight one, man.
You're going to need a stellar pitching performance that day, and you got it. You held Michigan to just 1 run over 10 innings, and Nebraska's able to not walk it off, but as close as you can get with that Bryce Matthews home run. That they got complementary baseball this weekend. It feels like they're playing their best baseball this season. Can they carry it on through another month and a half of the season? That's the question.
You got to stay locked in, and the experimentation of, can we find that third Sunday guy, and can the bullpen come around? You got to move forward now, and good work by Will and company to get on a bit of a roll here.
And now,
back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time, Hail Varsity Radio, this first hour, hour 2 on the way, the Blackshirt Hour. Charlie McBride, Mr. Blackshirt, a Monday with Charlie, 10 minutes away. Jay Moore, fresh from the desert, and he doesn't lose many golf balls, so no threat of rattlesnakes for him. So we'll talk with Jay Moore, and we'll probably wrap up with a little Husker basketball recruiting. How was the weekend for Coach Fred and company as they traveled out to see Hunter Salas? Some thoughts there. Going to spend a moment, though, and send condolences and love and well wishes to the Pensick family, as just awful news on Saturday. Cole Pensick passing away at the age of 32. Just a few interactions with Cole over the years covering the team back when he played there, and just a great dude. Loved seeing him play at such a high level at Nebraska. Love seeing him play at such a high level at Lincoln Northeast, and what a great career he had with the Rockets, not only doing wrestling and shot put, but just a stud baller for Northeast. And he got to Nebraska, part of the 08 recruiting class, 09 through 2013. I just really enjoyed Cole's attitude, his work ethic, and just his determination. I mean, he's what you want from an in-state Nebraska football player, and he just came in, did his job, and did it extremely well at center or at guard, second team all Big Ten in that 2013 season. And Cole just was part of that offensive line group that they were so close, and your heart goes out not only to Dan and the Pensick family, but also some of Cole's teammates with his passing. You think of guys like Searles and Spencer Long and Butch Cotton and Caputo and Qualley and Coach Garrison and Coach Barney. You lose a loved one like that way too soon, and you're just devastated for everybody. And always, a couple of times we got a chance to talk to Cole on the Monday press conference days, and was just a good dude. Just loved what he was able to do on the football field, and great work after football as well. Just south of Columbus, that Columbus area. Of course, our great listeners in Columbus, so we're thinking about that town as well. Yeah,
and just sad all around. If you think about that era of Husker football, already 3 guys we've lost now that by all accounts were just some of the best guys you'll ever meet. Mark Pelini, and Sam Foltz added to that list as well. Heartbreaking stuff. No one should be going that young. Age 32 is far too young to go. And as you mentioned, not only are our thoughts with his family, his loved ones, but also the entire community and everyone who's ever met him, had him as a part of their life. It's sad news today.
Yeah, we are sending hugs and prayers your way to all that have been touched, and so many by Cole Pensick. Numbers to get into the show at 489-1240. Can email at chris@halevarsity.com, and we will get some spring football thoughts. Again, another important week for Coach Rule and Nebraska football. We will spend some time with Charlie McBride and get Coach's thoughts on things just shortly here to start hour 2. And Hale Varsity Radio is presented by Currency for all your equipment financing needs. Go Currency. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel is hour 2. Up next with Hale Varsity.
The voice of Husker Nation is on the air. This is Hale Varsity Radio. Insight, opinion, expertise, along with the biggest names talking Nebraska sports. Join in with the show at 402-489-1240 or 1-800-825-5865. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbel.
Back with you. It's hour 2. It's Hale Varsity Radio. We're presented by Currency for all your equipment financing needs. Go Currency. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. And it is the Blackshirt Hour. We kick it off with Mr. Blackshirt himself, Charlie McBride. A Monday with Charlie. Coach, how was the weekend? How was the I assume you had some family back with you for the Easter weekend.
Well, we actually came home. I think it was on a Friday, so the weekend was pretty quiet, really. Yeah, but there was a lot of people around that neighborhood that had their families in. Some of the people that have places here, like they live close to Chicago, they come up and spent Easter weekend up at their cottages and stuff like that.
Well, good. It was good to see some Chicagoans, it sounds like. And how big a week is this for Nebraska when it comes to the rest of the spring? This is the second to last week before that dreaded final week, and then, here's the spring game.
It goes fast. I'll tell you what, you think, practice is going to go slow and everything, but all of a sudden when you're playing, it's even faster. and then they're getting up in the morning, and you really, by doing things early in the morning, the day seems more productive. Mm-hmm. I mean, I always thought that the earlier you could get up and do things, then you have the whole day, and pick and choose, you know what I'm saying? If you get up late, you got to race.
Yeah,
the race
fair.
Get it done, and that's the same thing with coaching. I mean, it's I think the players, if you talk to them, just like our kids did when we were in summer school, earlier was bad for them at first, and all of a sudden we go back to finish the end of summer school. They want to stay at the 7 o'clock workout. Mm. And, that surprises you, but that means that in 2 days you get a little longer rest in between practice.
Coach, I want to ask you about a topic that we heard from Coach Rule last week, and that's the mobile quarterback. And with the threat of the quarterback run that's been around for quite a while in college football, it's just taken some different forms, from option to more of a scrambler to the zone read game. And when it came to keying on some specific people in the offensive side of things, how much did that stress you in your game plan, having to worry or prepare for a mobile quarterback?
That's awful. I mean, that's the thing that happens is, especially when you have one guy that comes in and throws and one guy that runs an option, that gives you at least who's in the game. Mm-hmm. But when you have, when you do both, and we had a power offense, we had an option offense, and we had somewhat of a spread offense with our passing game. Anytime you play a team that runs the option, you have to spend time in practice to figure out who's got who. Mm-hmm. Dive quarterback the pitch, and you have to drill your secondary. And the hard thing is, if you don't have teams that run, they might run one type of option, which speed option was the big option play that everybody ran because it didn't take an inside dive, and it was just pretty much an outside play. So it wasn't a hard play to defend or anything like that. But when you have multiple options, plus you're running a trap game, plus you're running a power game, plus you're throwing football, plus you have the I formation, and, which Tom probably knew it was probably everybody says, well, I don't know about the counter sweep, but I know who devised it. That was Coach Osborne, and they all say the Steelers did. Mm. Well, if you go back and look, the Steelers never ran it till 2 years after Nebraska had run it, and they took everything off of film. So, that's what happens in the NFL when they call them copycats.
Mm-hmm.
Coach, from a defensive perspective, would you rather go up against that team that runs their quarterback 20 times a game, or the team that runs their quarterback 5 times a game? Because we saw it with Nebraska a couple of years ago. Adrian Martinez was the leading rusher. It felt like he was getting about 15, 20 a game. But the new era of not only college football but the NFL is to make teams worry about the threat of the quarterback run more than you actually use it, and you maybe run that quarterback 5, 6 times a game. Which do you think is more difficult to prepare for?
Well, if you look at back when we played Oklahoma, if you didn't stop the quarterback running the football, you're history. You're beat, because that's they had a lot of special plays just for him to run. The quarterback to run, and so to have a quarterback that can really run with a football is number one. I think you got to stop him, and we felt like they were better runners than throwers, a lot of them. And that starts where you make a decision right there. If a guy's a good thrower and he's not as good a runner, well, you know what you're going to have to defend. I mean, it is hard to figure out, but I think that a quarterback with a good offense, with as quick and fast as they were, I'd rather have them throw the football any day of the week.
Charlie McBride's with us. It's Hail Varsity Radio, a Monday with Charlie. Coach, I want to ask you about the topic of confidence, because that was something that was focused in on by Coach Rule, and he's building this team's confidence through practice. Did you guys ever have a crisis of confidence with an opponent or a team, or were your kids all pretty locked in and not too worried because they really didn't have too many problems with adversity? They all faced it, but their response was correct most of the time.
Well, I think the thing is, when I go back and look at what Nebraska did, a lot of schools can't do it. They just happened to get in a groove early. And back when Bob Devaney was here and those guys, every game was a bowl game, every practice. I mean, it was, there was no, you got ready for, the schools you knew you could beat, just like you did get ready for the ones that were the toughest. And they didn't change. It was always the same. And I think that had a lot to do with confidence. And when they went into a game, it was, just like being on the same track. You don't switch tracks. You just keep going. And they were able to do that. And I think Coach Devaney, and what a lot of people don't understand is it's that he was born with a certain kind of way to talk to players and to establish things. Mm-hmm. And, that's really important. I think there's a lot of times coaches, try to be rocket scientists and do this and that. But, to get them, they better go out and play. You can put anything you want in. But they better go out and play smash mouth, and I mean not right now, and don't be fooling around with, we're playing so-and-so this week, so I think I'll forget about, really going to bed, get my sleep, hydrating, and doing all the things I'm supposed to be doing. That never happened that I could see. Now, there may be a couple of them that went that way, but I think that the majority of the players, the heart of the football team was, like I always said, their heart was in the right place.
Coach, whenever adversity strikes, is it that confidence factor that allows a team to be able to respond to that?
Well, you can see it happen in a game. If you're winning, at least what happened with us a lot was not necessarily the game in front of us, the game we're playing. If we're taking somebody and really playing well and offensively and scoring points, and then all of a sudden you turn the fire off. That's something you really have to be careful with, because it did happen to us a couple of times where we just kind of said, well, we're ahead. That's okay. We don't have to play as hard as we did early. And when you get in that mood, then that can cause you some confidence problems, because then you have to fight back. And normally, if you look at some of the games that did happen to us, we were ahead, and all of a sudden they score 3 touchdowns or something like that. And now we got to go back with the first team and the second team instead of the guys that, we'd like to get in the game and play, because that just doesn't work all the time, And so now we have to go back with our players. Now, are they on edge? No. They thought they won the game. They thought everything was over. And the game's not over till the fat ladies sing.
Charlie McBride's with us, a Monday with Charlie. It's Hail Varsity Radio. And the process, tell me about what was the difference, Coach, in your practices and the Nebraska practice that helped develop so many, that got guys ready from first team and those fourth teamers eventually climbing up to first or second team.
Well, if you ever get a chance to talk to a guy like Roger Craig or somebody like that, when my back was turned, I was called Coach Run It Again. And and they knew they were going to get stoned if they had to run it again, but that's where you learn, and I just think when Roger Craig came to me in the office and said, this was when he was playing for the 49ers, he said, Coach, if I wasn't on the scout team, I never would be here with the 49ers, because I learned to get beat up. I learned to get hit. I learned to protect myself. I learned a lot of football, from that. And, you learn that when coaches watch the film. They see you doing things you shouldn't be doing. And they, you really suck up some of that information pretty, right away. And that happened to more than him. Mm-hmm. I would be willing to bet he just happened to be one that came in and said, that if he hadn't been on the scout team, he said he wouldn't have made it. He didn't think and he was the kind of kid that, he changed positions his senior year. And I think even though he didn't necessarily like it, was that kind of person. And that's one of the reasons he got drafted, where he got drafted, because of that attitude. Yeah.
Coach, we're going to end it with a golf question, because I know you used to play. And if you could pick 3 coaches that you've crossed paths with to golf with for a round of 18, we'll put you at Augusta, who would you pick?
I guess I better go with Guy Engel's number 1. And I think Charlie North at Oklahoma, I'd go with number 2. And then I'd have to think about the third guy. But, there's pretty good golfers that I don't think it'd be any of the coaches on our staff, really. But, we were kind of all kind of bad. I mean, it was what did you struggle with on the golf course? Well, I had a coach. I had a pro ask me one day, "Can I make some clubs for you?" And I said, "No." He's out at North Platte, and I said no. And then I finally said, "Yeah." I got the price down a little bit. Then I couldn't hit the driver, so he took me out, and we hit balls before. This was during a tournament the next year, and I sucked, and so he said, "Just keep using your driver and keep working." I came in at 9. I started at 1. I came in at 9, and I told him it was bad. So he takes me out to 10, and he looks down there, and it's like 242, I think it was. And he said, "If you hit this, you're going to be in that cornfield behind you, so you better use your 3-wood." So I did, and it just a little bit of rain started, and I hit the ball as good as I've ever hit it, and everybody around that was on a green here kept yelling, "It went in, it went in." And I got my first hole-in-one. And then we had, then it was awful because they called the press from town. And they were on a golf course. And then I really was bad. But it cost me about $250 to get out of there.
Probably, because you got to buy rounds, don't you, if you get the hole-in-one. Never do that again, right? I like it. Charlie McBride.
No, that's when I hung my golf club up.
Well, good for you. Coach, we'll holler at you next Monday and get ready for that final week of spring football, okay?
Well, listen, have fun. That's when it's fun. You're going to go into a deep pout after it's over.
I know, absolutely. Yeah. Coach, you take care. Thanks again.
Okay. Thanks for having me. Bye now.
There he is, Mr. Blackshirt, Charlie McBride. Jay Moore on the way.
All-State, 2-year starter, and rush in for the Big Red and NFL vet.
Is Dudeness or Duder or, El Duderino if you're not into the whole brevity thing.
It's Blackshirt Jay Moore with Hail Varsity Radio.
Back into it at Hail Varsity Radio. We're presented by Currency. We welcome in Blackshirt Husker NFLer Jay Moore, co-host Big Red Wrap-Up. Find him on Twitter at JMoore44. Jay, how was the desert?
The desert was fantastic. Weather was upper 80s every day, light winds, grass is green, golf courses are good. But glad we're back in warm Nebraska. Some nice weather to come back home to.
Well, Jay Moore is responsible, him and Kim Chimick, of course, for your weekend weather forecast in Lincoln. He brought it back with him from Arizona. We'll start off with some Masters thoughts before we get into spring football. What'd you think of Rahm, and what'd you think of Sunday? Yeah,
it was good. The weather was, we knew that going into the week that was going to be a major story and an issue. It ended up being just that. The weather was, it was really good Thursday, Friday, and then Saturday upper 40s, windy, rain, just tough to deal with. A lot of guys are going to struggle. I mean, the majority of guys did struggle. And obviously, Tiger had a WD, just not being able to, just the way his body's gone through this stuff, just dealing with the cold and the rain, it's just not ideal. But I really liked Rahm going into this week. I really did. I figured I liked just seeing the forecast, like a European. They grow up playing more of these conditions where it's cold and rainy. Rahm obviously being from Spain, so I had a hunch, and it's not a crazy hunch by any means. The guy's already won 3 times this year, and already has one other major to his belt. But I just felt like his time was due, and he's kind of had a different mentality about this year. And the wild thing is, he started the week with a 4-putt on number 1, and you think, whoa, wow. But sometimes when things happen like that, it almost frees you up just a little bit more. It takes a little of the pressure off of you for some weird reason, and that's exactly what it did for him. And he just, I think he responded so well after that first hole on Thursday, and ended up shooting like 67, somewhere around there on Thursday, and the rest was history. A well-deserved champion, the 4th Spaniard to win a Masters, and I would highly doubt that would be his only Masters. I can see him snagging 2 or 3 more green jackets.
Jay Moore is with us here, Hail Varsity Radio. And Jay, you talked about Rahm being able to battle through adversity with the first hole on Thursday being so terrible for him. And to relate this back to Husker football, we've seen Nebraska crumble under some adversity in recent years. Whenever the going gets tough, it seems like, as opposed to letting some of the pressure come off, they add some pressure to themselves. And I want to get your take, not only in golf, but also in football, in just how you respond to things not going your way and what's important in terms of mentality there.
Golf and football are so vastly different in those two scenarios. Golf is, you have to find the happy medium between not giving a crap and really caring. You can't care too much, because then you put too much pressure on yourself, but you also can't try to not care at all, because then you make stupid mistakes. You can't do that. So golf is just, you have to be cool, you have to be calm, you have to be patient. Golf's a very, very patient sport. Now the other side with football, where it's vastly different, is like you can play pissed off and get more aggressive and you can do that and you can try harder, and it usually works out very, very well. Golf's just about the only sport I can think of where the harder you try, the worse the worse the result is. But in baseball, basketball, football, track, whatever it is, it's usually the harder you try and the more effort you give, you're gonna get the results. So that's the kind of the two, different scenarios of that situation. But when you do have, you mess up or you come into those situations, and whether it's pressure or whether pressure's, you can take it one or different ways. A lot of times pressure comes from not being prepared, or it's just too big of a situation for you. And a lot of times it's too big of a situation because you're frankly just not prepared. So I don't know that's been the case for Nebraska. They might not have been prepared in the past. I think John Ross was rather prepared this week to play well at Augusta. So, yeah, comparing them as apples and oranges. But I tell you what, I hope Nebraska can get over the hump here and start dealing with pressure and adversity, and dealing with adversity better going forward under Coach Rule.
Jay Moore's with us here, Hail Varsity Radio. The topic of confidence, pretty prevalent last week with Matt Rule. And I want to get your thought here on the undoing of confidence. Was that ever something your football teams faced at Nebraska?
When you're not playing well, or you've gone through some adversity, when you do hit some sticky situations where you get, whether it's, you're giving up big plays, or you're not getting, the ball bounces the wrong way for you, or just whatever it is, whatever kind of adversity strikes, there is a human instinct, just a natural instinct to go, oh man, here we go again. This is just like last year. This is just like the game against Michigan. This is just like the game against Ohio State. This is like the game against Iowa. These things happen, and you can get in a rut like that. So I know we've had it. I look back to our first year with Bill Callahan, and we went 5-6, and the things that happened to us, and we're obviously much better the next year. But when we did hit some adversity, you're like, oh boy, here we go again. This feels like the K-State game last year, whatever it is. So there is a natural instinct to always think back to that. But I tell you what, there comes a time where you feel like that, and then you're able to almost get out of that. Because you start making your own breaks, right? You start doing things that get you out of those situations. I think of my junior year, even though we lost the game kind of flukishly, the Texas Tech game my junior year. Just the previous year we lost to Texas Tech, 70-10, whatever it was, and I think they jumped off to a 21-10 or 21-7 start against us, and you're like, oh my gosh, here we go again. But we battled back, and you fought back, and we got stops, and the offense got going, and Keevan Smith intercepts that football and obviously fumbles it, but that game was ours. We won that game, and we were down, a couple scores where you had that feeling like, oh man, here we go again. But you start, you're able to build on some of those situations where you're able to battle out of a hole, and that's how you gain confidence. And then all of a sudden, you don't think about all the negative issues that come with facing adversity. Then you're like, oh man, okay, when you do get down 2 or even maybe a 3-possession game, you're like, hey, this is no big deal. We did this against Texas Tech, or we did this against Iowa, or we did this against Minnesota last year or the year before, and you're able to almost go back to better situations and better games where you're able to battle that. But it's hard when you haven't done it. It's really, really difficult to have positive, confident thoughts when nothing but negative thoughts come into your mind, because you haven't been a successful program. So they're going to have to create their own self-confidence and do that on their own, because they can't think back to many games to where they were able to overcome much adversity, because they haven't won a whole lot of football games in the last handful of years. So it's going to be a tall task for them to gain that confidence this year.
Jay, you look at Coach Rule and how he's structuring practice. How do you believe that'll aid confidence? They still got to do it on Saturdays for sure, but there's an initial step in this process of rebuild.
Yeah, practice is one thing. You've got to start somewhere. You can't just throw your helmets out there on Saturday and think, oh, I hope we're going to gain some confidence. So you got to start. You got to start in practice. You got to start developing that and creating that, and creating situations with competition, because competition can breed confidence. You go good on good, ones on ones, and whoever the offense or the defense is successful, you can create confidence that way. But that's just a small part of it, and that's, if you want to look back to golf, there's one thing to hit the ball really well in the range, but you got to take it to the golf course. Can you do that? But you still have to start somewhere, hitting the ball well in the range, and then you can hopefully you're able to learn that game and hit the ball the way you like to on the driving range, on the golf course. So I think it's just a starting point for them. It's just trying to build that there on the practice field in good competition, in good on good situations, and then when they do get to that, when they're playing Minnesota in Thursday in the last week of August, hopefully they're able to think back to those times when they were going ones-on-ones in training camp and in spring practice and thinking about all the good things and hopefully not looking back to that negativity of, oh, man, I remember the Minnesota game last year or whatever it may be. So it's just, like I said, it's just a starting point but realistically, the main competence is become doing it well on Saturdays.
Jay, to speak on 1v1s, good on good, how much better did that make you? Who did you go against and vice versa? Who did you help out?
Yeah, it's everything. Because you can develop some bad habits, get a little lethargic, get a little complacent. Going against the scout team, that's who you go against during the season. For I would say 75% of your practice is you're going against third and fourth team guys who are probably walk-ons or guys who are true freshmen that are redshirting that are raw. But I remember going against whether it was Matt Slauson, Seppo Varier, Brandon Cook. There were so many good players. Leiden Murtha, Chris Patrick, Carl Nix, all those good players. I mean, then you're going against, I had to line up and try to cover tight end sometimes too, and whether that was Josh Mueller, Matt Harrion, J.B. Phillips, and then you're trying to tackle guys like Brandon Jackson and Marlon Lucky and Kenny Wilson. So we went against every day in spring ball, every day in training camp, and then small portions during the week. Now we never went live during the week during the season, but Tuesdays you had your 9-on-7 sessions. Wednesdays you had your blitz period sessions. And Thursdays you had your 2-minute sessions. So you got some good on good sprinkled in throughout the week, but the majority of your good on good one-on-one situation is all during training camp and spring ball. That's where the development comes. Because once you get in the season, it's all about game planning and instituting that game plan and fine-tuning everything and keeping guys healthy so they're able to perform on Saturday. But yeah, there's a lot of good players that I played against that end up playing on Sundays too.
And now,
back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Jay Moore is with us here. It's Hail Varsity Radio. And Jay, we're just talking about that good-on-good action, and I want to get your take, a former player's perspective. The spring game's coming up here. It's just right around the corner, and from a player's point of view, would you rather go good-on-good in this spring game, or would you rather have a nice, easy end to your spring practice? From just a competition standpoint, what would you prefer?
Yeah, I think back to the spring games. I've had one with Coach Solich where it was good on good, and I think with Callahan we did kind of go 1s on 2s and 2s on 1s, and it wasn't quite good on good. You go through the 3 or 4 week process of spring ball where it's a grind. You are going good on good, 1s on 1s the whole time. And then you get to the spring game. It's kind of a small reward because you're able to go out there and play against 40, 50, 60,000 fans, and usually the weather's good. But the greatest thing is too is you want to come out of it healthy. And I don't think. I look back to ours. I can't remember ever going 1s on 1s in the spring game with Coach Callahan. I think it was a good opportunity. You kind of know what you have, but it's also a good opportunity to kind of scout the guys who are the second team guys or the third team guys when they're going against the one defense or the one offense. You can kind of see what they can kind of do, and some guys can kind of surprise you a little bit. But usually, you get to the spring game, you just want to kind of get over it, get out of there, and stay healthy, and then get ready for summer conditioning and fall camp. But like I said, the spring game is I kind of viewed it as a little bit of a reward, and I think you put all that work into the 14 or 13 practices prior, and then it's more of the game's a reward, and just get out of there healthy and get ready for fall camp.
Jay Moore with us, Hail Varsity Radio. Of course, Big Red Wrap-Up with Jay Moore at JMoore44. On Twitter, Blackshirt Husker NFLer. Jay, enjoy the sunny week, and we'll do this again. Thanks for jumping on.
Yep. Thanks, boys.
Good to spend time with Jay Moore as he's back at it. Good perspective there on building up, kind of that iron sharpening iron mentality, and how Nebraska wants to go out. They want to go out with a bang, that's for sure, and a physical spring football game, and that'll be nice for the Nebraska fans to see.
Do you think we're going to get quarterbacks in non-contact jerseys for the spring game? It's been a while. I think it dates back to Bo Pelini the last time we had quarterbacks live in the spring game.
Let's see how much contact exists this week and next. Because you kind of got to pick your – because they'll have a scrimmage Saturday, and presumably he'd have them live again. But he's getting them ready. You're going to have to tackle a quarterback.
Well, I think
you're going to have to tackle a running quarterback.
From a quarterback's perspective, if the rushing element of the quarterback game is going to be emphasized this fall, you want to have those guys ready for what those hits are going to be like. And while you don't want to put the quarterback in the line of fire in a game that doesn't matter like the spring game, it does kind of matter in that you're testing how this guy is going to respond to getting hit, which is a huge part of having a willing rushing quarterback. Like, what happens whenever he takes that first big lick? Because you think back to Adrian Martinez, didn't phase him. He played through a broken jaw, and he was able to roll with the punches and play through the pain. Do you have a quarterback that can do that? And I guess the follow-up question to that is, do you want to figure that out during this spring game?
Sure. Yeah, you want to figure that out without losing said quarterback. Here's what the biggest thing is. How many quarterback fumbles has Nebraska had since 2010 to now? That's a number we need to research. Because Adrian, Taylor, Tommy really didn't have fumble issues, to my knowledge. But all three had moments, if not most of their career, as a dual threat, let's run the football quarterback. And as great as Adrian and Taylor were with highlight wow moments and keeping the team in games and be difference-making, they also had a lot of turnovers.
Yeah, all three of them had the element of watching them play. It wasn't a matter of if, it was a matter of when they were going to commit a turnover.
Sure. And more so Adrian and Taylor with the running aspect. Mm-hmm. They get hit, there's a fumble. Mm-hmm. And that's something that, don't kid yourself, the fact that they were not to be looked at funny or breathed upon came back and hurt them in-game action because they weren't willing to get them hit during practice. So Crouch never fumbled, right? Crouch never fumbled because he was live a lot of his career. Frost didn't fumble that often. I think both had like one bad option pitch in a monsoon of a ball game. Mm-hmm. They knew how to take a hit. They knew how to land. They knew how to position their body, and they know how to absorb it and hang on to the football.
And I think maybe that wasn't the case back then, but what's become very important recently in football is, as a quarterback, knowing when the right time to take a hit is. When do you get down? When do you fight for that extra yard? That's one thing I don't think Adrian ever quite got at Nebraska, was when do you want to step out of bounds and say, you know what, we can have 3rd and 1 here, as opposed to fighting for that extra yard? And when do you know what, it's the fourth quarter, we got 4 minutes left, we're going to fight for that extra yardage? He kind of got it by his junior year, but that was something he always struggled with, was when to value self-preservation over putting the team on your back and fighting for that extra yard. That it's important in the modern scheme of quarterback.
That kid had broad shoulders and a sturdy back. Mm-hmm. Because it was him. Let's hit into some Nebraska basketball. This may carry us over to the final segment. But Husker Hoops, big recruiting weekend. Of course, Coach Hoiberg and Lenzer out to see Hunter Salas yesterday. Nebraska on the track for Bryce Williams as well. He's the Charlotte guard at 6'7", 215, second-team Conference USA. So lots of competition for Williams. That's Miami, Illinois, South Carolina, a lot of SEC schools, NC State, Virginia Tech, as well as Clemson. But I think Nebraska has put themselves in a pretty good spot with Williams having an official visit to Lincoln. 13 starts. That's not a full-time starter, but I do believe he was tournament MVP of the CBI tournament. The kid shoots right around 40% from three-point land, right around 50% from the field overall, and you love his size and versatility. So if Nebraska could pick up a guy like Bryce Williams, that's nice. You pair him with Hunter Salas. And right now, Nebraska's other competition is going to be Georgetown and Wake Forest. Washington, D.C.'s Washington, D.C., but I've been to Winston-Salem, and it ain't a contest between Nebraska and Wake Forest there. But what's really important to Salas, I do believe, is who's going to get me to the next level, what's my role going to be. And I think from a role standpoint, Fred and Lenzer can help develop a more consistent scoring aspect for Hunter, because his role to get on the floor was to defend and then maybe occasionally get downhill. I think if Nebraska's smart, and I think Coach Hoiberg and Lenzer are, they're going to ask Salas to make cuts to the basket, assuming there's a big guy that they can find a big guy that can help initiate offense with the wings cutting. Mm-hmm. That was big for Nebraska's February. As good as their February was, the wings, Kisei and company, getting clean shots at the rim, but get Hunter downhill and have him get consistent with that mid-range and three, because he wants to get downhill and drive to the rim. A couple more thoughts on some big body targets Nebraska's going after. Hail Varsity continues.
And now,
back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time on a Monday, podcast available for you, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play for the audio portion, video portion. Going to be there for you on Hail Varsity YouTube or the Hail Varsity Radio Twitter handle. Catch Damon and Andrew in the morning, 7 to 10 on the Hail Varsity Radio Twitter handle. Catch us in the afternoon here on Hail Varsity at H Varsity Radio. You want the one-on-one interview with Coach McBride, that file is there. You want to catch the whole show, just take us with. Do so, both portions available. Reminder to get buckled up. One of every 3 fatal crashes in Nebraska involves an alcohol-impaired driver. Why take chances? If you drink, don't drive. A message from the Nebraska Department of Highway Safety Office. Wrapping up Nebraska basketball portal recruiting. Salas in Nebraska positioned good. Get him here for a spring game visit. I think you can seal it up. You've got John Ugly with Pitt. He's the big body. They're looking at also Reek Mast. He is the talent from Bradley. So those are a couple of big bodies Nebraska's looking at here. Are you okay? Do I need to IV you coffee? You've had about 17 yawns today.
Yeah, I don't know what is up with that. I actually got a text about that. It's not you. It's me. It's not you. It's me, Schmitty.
Well, thank you, Costanza. Thank you, Costanza.
It's I don't really quite know what's up with it. It wasn't that tiring of a weekend, and I got good sleep last night. So your guess is as good as mine. But I'm feeling good.
Sure. But no.
Blame it on the seasonal allergies. I'm not sure that causes
Dude,
yawning,
it's bad. Everyone's sneezing and hacking and snotting.
We were walking through those trees yesterday morning, and it was snot just running down my face, nothing I could do about it. I even took a Zyrtec before that walk, and it just did not help at all. So that's been brutal, but we'll blame it on that.
Daily. It's my thing. Do a daily Zyrtec. So there's no more free shout-outs today. So Nebraska basketball busy. Good weekend for Husker Baseball. We had plenty of spring football thoughts. Tomorrow, back in practice, and we'll hear from Coach Rule and Coach McGuire, a couple of other players. The baseball diamond on our mind, Jabba Chamberlain, will join us tomorrow, get his take on the run. The Big Red can maybe get on here after a big weekend in Michigan. Mitch Sherman will be with us. And big thanks today to Jay Moore and, of course, Charlie McBride, that Blackshirt hour in hour 2. And big thanks to Chris Elgert, PGA Insider, local golf aficionado, his thoughts on the Masters. So got a lot of it covered. Going to be a good week. Elijah may be rocking a bro tank or two with 80 degrees. Do you have a temperature, or do you not own bro tanks?
I own one, and I don't know, the tan lines that it leads to, and just the whole, I don't know. Maybe before.
Are you too old to rock a bro tank now?
I don't think I'm too old. I think it depends.
Does it worry you that you may be rocking a bro tank with a mustache?
No, not at all. It worries me that I'd be coming into work in a bro tank and being on video feed in a bro tank. Like if you're going to the lake, sure, pull out the tank. If you're going to the pool, pull out the tank.
It's radio appropriate attire.
I like to set a high standard for myself.
COVID, man, everyone rolls in sweatpants here. Not everyone, but some of us.
Not me.
You see, look, we got the skinny jeans. All right, skinny jeans sighting.
What a way to finish the show.
All right, go pour one. We'll be back at it tomorrow, 4 o'clock, and can always find the show on Facebook and Twitter as well. For Elijah Herbel, Chris Schmidt, talk to you at 4 tomorrow with Hail Varsity, presented by Currency.